Hi guys, I'm Dinithi. This is the 50th video of the series of designing an e-commerce web application, and today let's go through the programming part behind our selling history page. First, let's check out the product searching process. First, I'm gonna search by the invoice ID. So, 2. Yep, I got the second one. Now let's search by the date. Let me enter the dates. And find. Yep, I got the products that were sold during this time period. Now let's move on to my code. So here's my code for selling history. First, let's check out the searching process by invoice ID. So I've assigned this search invoice ID function on key up to this input field where we enter the invoice ID. Moving on to that function over here. First, I assigned the entered ID to this variable. Then I created a new XML HTTP request and sent my request to search invoice ID process.php using get method. So here's search invoice ID process.php. First, I linked my database and then I checked whether the ID we got using get method actually has a value or not, and if yes, then I assigned that value to invoice ID. Then I used this query to get that invoice, and the number of rows of the result set can be only 1 or 0. So if it's 1, then this will happen, else invalid invoice ID. Over here, so if invoice num equals to 1, then I fetched that row as invoice data and I used that to get the ID, total cost and quantity. Then I used this query to get the product title and this one to get the user's first name and last name. And then I used these lines to change invoice status. So if status equals to 0, then confirm order, and if status equals to 1, then packing, and likewise. And I've assigned this same function to every button on click, change invoice status ID. So here's that function. Here I basically created a new XML HTTP request and sent my request to change invoice status process.php, and here it is. First, I connected my database as usual. Then if the ID we got using get method has a value, I assigned that value to this invoice ID variable. Then I got all from our invoice table related to that invoice and assigned it to this invoice data variable. And over here, I assigned the status from invoice data to this status ID variable and created a new variable called new status and assigned it to 0. Then comes this if statement. So if status ID equals to 0, then I updated it to 1 while assigning the new status to 1. Same thing happens with other IDs. And finally, I echoed new status. So this is my response. Moving back to the function. So if I get the response text as 1, then I changed the text inside the button to packing while assigning this warning class to the button. And if this is 2, then dispatch. and shipping for 3 and delivered for 4. And if I get anything else rather than these, then I alerted that one. So that's how the searching process by invoice ID work. Then comes searching by date, and I've assigned this find sellings function to this find button on click. Moving on to that function, here it is. First, I assigned the values of from and to these variables. Then I created a new XML HTTP request and sent my request to the server using get method. And here's find sellings process.php. First, I connected my database using connection.php as usual. If both F and T, which are from and to dates, are declared, then I first assigned them to these variables. Then I got all from the invoice table and got the number of rows of the result set over here. Then I created this for loop to fetch each row as invoice data and assigned the date separately to this sold date variable. Then I used this explode function to break this string into an array. Then over here, if from isn't empty while to is, and if from is less than or equals to D, which is this one, then this will happen. These lines basically displays the wanted details of a selected product. I explained this whole thing in searching by invoice ID part as well. So I'm not gonna explain it once again. And then comes this. So if from is empty and to isn't, and if to is greater than or equals to D, then this will happen. And then if both from and to aren't empty, and if D is equal to or in between from and to, then this will happen. Moving back to the function, so I used this line to display our response text in here, which is called view area. And here's view area. So that's pretty much it for this video. Today we went through the programming part behind our selling history page. Thank you so much for watching. Hope to see you all again. Goodbye.